want a picture of Bill. Yeah, I'm not going to get it.
I guess it kind of looks like this.
There we go.
It's wonderful to see you all this morning. Very exciting. This is great. Thank you all for coming out. I'm surprised there are so many of us here on a Saturday morning.
So many pictures.
I hope you've enjoyed your sort of Camp Cornell days. Welcome. I was very excited about this talk. Very focused on it. I have to say until just a few minutes ago. One of you came up to me, I want to say one of you came up to me and said, "Is Bill Nye your real name?" And I said, "Well, it's William Nye." And then the person like the room was a student said, "Well, why did you change it?" Wow, this is the future. No, I kid because I love. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much for coming. This, as Dr. Bell mentioned, this project has been very important to me for a long time. You live your life, you never know what's going to happen to you, and one thing is led to another. And here we are. Welcome, Cornellians, professors, friends, colleagues. I just take a few minutes and tell you a story. Our story begins with, let's see. Okay, here we go. Our story begins with my dad. This is my dad. Well, actually, it's a picture of my dad. He was, so I know you guys, with your Wii's and your video games, you may not have ever seen, but this is a hammer. What geologists do is they hit things with on purpose. And I don't know if you don't get out much, but these are rocks. And geologists love rocks, they're crazy for rocks, they walk around all day looking at rocks, every rock tells a story. Are there geologists here? A couple, yeah, because you'll see that they walk around like this. Hoping to find something. This one's different. So my dad was not a full-time geologist, but he was quite a rock hound, as they call him. He liked rocks, and he called himself Ed Nye, boy scientist. And once again, because that was his name, that's why he used it. So, unlike many of us, my father didn't like law school. I know it seems weird. It sounds like so much fun. So we got this great idea somehow to not finish law school, but get a summer job on Wake Island. Yeah. So Wake Island is in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. You go to Hawaii and then you go that far again. You're on this seemingly middle of nowhere place, but it's big enough, Wake Island. It's still there, by the way. They haven't moved it. And, it's big enough to build an airstrip. And here's a picture from what's called Peel Island. It's all one thing. It's a curved piece of land out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. This is where you would refuel these flying boats, so-called airplanes, the seaplanes. And so, although it's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, if you can get ships there and put aviation fuel there, then you can put into your planes and carry on. And so this is a U.S. base there in the summer of 1941. So here is one of the flying clippers. These were airplanes made to land on the ocean. And they did, and they had big engines. And my dad was the quartermaster of this construction crew because he was a college kid. And they would refuel these planes and keep track of how much by the way, these planes were so big.
How big were they?
Poor people. There's a lot of competition up there, okay? These planes were so big. I'm not worried about the future. It's all good. That they became quite fragile, and not any complete Boeing clippers survived the war. There's pieces of it, but there isn't a complete one of these planes. It's cool as they are. Now, this picture is from a book written by the Navy commander on the Wake Island, and there's no record exactly, but I'm pretty sure, and I'm not joking, that that's my dad. Right there. Well, it's a picture. Yeah, it's a picture. He was my supervisor fueling we were playing. He told me, yeah, it was great. We didn't have our shirts on, and it was cool. We were playing. We didn't put on the raincoats. Okay, that was all fun for a while. Well, Wake Island, being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, have encountered some difficulty. On December 7th, 1941, as part of their Pacific strategy, the Japanese Navy bombed Wake Island. It's the same day as Pearl Harbor. And this is a picture, this is a newspaper that my dad kept, actually his parents kept, my grandparents kept, from that day. And for us, I mean, we all lived through 9/11, which was quite striking. But this really sounds like it was a huge deal. There was a war going on in Europe, and this was the moment when the war became worldwide. And so these guys, my dad and his colleagues, fought back. They shot down at least 2 Japanese bombers every day for 2 weeks. And they were all eventually captured on Christmas Eve, 1941. And he wrote in his diary, saddest day of my life. Like that. But it is interesting to note. Here's this newspaper, 1941, talking about the war, speedy agreements for conducting war. It also refers to the just really long tradition of the United States and Britain being allies, despite our differences and the language barrier. It's interesting to note that on this day, in the lower corner of the paper, 14 shotgun days for Christmas. Like, it's not that new an idea. It's quite charming. So this was all going on. Now, my dad had a college sweetheart, my mother, and just by the weird luck of the universe, my mother was undergraduate, in the spring of 1942. Now, by weirdness of life, she went to Goucher College, which is a liberal arts school. I guess it's a good school. They don't have an engineering school, so I don't know. But it was back when they had such things. The sister school to Johns Hopkins. Now it's an independent school. It's very nice. Anyway, so the president of Goucher, a woman, was the first cousin of the Secretary of War, Secretary Stinson. And apparently, the family story is that he asked his cousin, do you have any women that can come work in this thing? I can't tell you what it is. So my mom and 11 other women were recruited from Goucher to work on this thing called the Enigma Code. And this was this Nazi code, German code, that was originally built by a guy to send bank transactions around Germany. And it's this fantastic thing. It looks like a typewriter. And you put in one letter and it comes out a different letter. You put in the same letter again, it comes out a different letter or a different letter. And it's very difficult code to break, and these mathematicians worked on it. So my mom and 11 other friends of hers worked on this thing. And it's not clear what they did. When I was a little kid, bouncing off of grown-ups' knees, these people had cocktail parties. That's how they interacted. Of course, that's all changed. But they would ask my mother, hey, what did you do during the war, Jackie? This was their touch thing. This is what everybody would talk about. And she would say, well, I can't talk about it. So these women, I went to their reunion party or what have you, and they didn't talk about what they did. They were declassified in 1992. Can you imagine keeping a secret for 50 years? I mean, my goodness, and they did. I guess that's how they roll. But anyway, just so you can try to pick out my mother, I will say to you, really, objective, just objective. Who's got the best legs? So there's my mom. Oh, it's a picture of my mom. So she is Lieutenant Navy. So my mother then worked in the enlistment code while my dad was in prison camp. And bear in mind, it's just a different era, you know. There was no Facebook. Yeah. There's no internet. What did they do all day? Yeah. But these guys had disappeared from Wake Island. These some Marines and Navy guys and these civilians were all captured from Wake Island and just taken to the mainland of China. And no one knew what happened to them, like almost 4 years. It's really a different era. So then my dad emerged, and my parents got married right after we got back. My mom waited for him, which was, a little bit unusual. So anyway, while my father had been in prison for 44 months, the Japanese military had confiscated all their watches, and there was no jewelry, and they had no clocks and so on. So my father, the family, how many traditional constellations are there, people? This is close. That's all right, I'm fine. Now, how many keys on the piano? 88 traditional constellations. But many of those you can only see in the supplements. So, anyway, my dad became an amateur astronomer, and he also became fascinated with sundials. So the family myth is, use a shovel handle or a broomstick or whatever the Japanese military would allow them, and he would reckon time watching the shadow. And several times I was with him, and he put pebbles on the ground, and hey, watch this. Oh, by the way, if you ever go to anybody here in the North American Sundial Society? Anybody? Because that's crazy. You may go to a party with the accountants, you know how that's nuts. Right? But the sundial thing, everybody's like, it's moving. So, my dad, he really took this to heart, how would I say? He created the sand dial, which you can take to the beach and not put sand in your watch. He wrote a book about sundials. He had articles published in Washington area newspapers talking about sundials and how much he liked them and so on. And it's hard to read, but it says, as sundials become more interesting to scientists, they become less interesting to everybody else. It gets so complicated. I just can't tell you. If you try to reckon time, really, the way we have time on our watches and cell phones, so like milliseconds, you try to get that for the sundial, it makes you so nuts. It's like the Earth's orbit is an ellipse, the Earth is tilted, the atmosphere is refracting, the Earth has a precession, it's doing this like crazy, but what fun. This also, if you can read it, it's from a different time. But he told the reporter, the Washington Star newspaper, the Star has been absorbed. It used to be 2 newspapers before the internet. And it says, sundials are like pretty girls. You don't really need to understand them to appreciate them.
Good one.
But you reach a point in life where everything really should be a sundial. Weird. Every telephone pole, every fire hydrant, certainly every microphone stand, anything that casts a shadow really should be a sundial. So I was at the beach this summer in Delaware, and I took a pizza box, made it into a sundial. I could quit if I wanted. I just don't want to, that's all. Writing time, pretty well. So on sundials, anything that doesn't tell time, is not used for telling time, is called its furniture. It's furniture. So this sundial is furnished with a beautiful drawing from this beautiful woman, and there it is. fabulous reckoning time on the beach, and you'll see this sundial has a motto: for the sunny hours. And if you take it out at night, really, unless there's a full moon, really nothing happening. This is why we draw that. But my father's book and all his ideas, one of his things was he wrote a monograph about turning the Washington Monument into a sundial. And for some reason, my father's genius has still been unrecognized. This time of year, by the way, if you go there in the summer, let's get to the August, but if you go there now, the thing is so big. It's still a little worried. It's only August, right? Okay. I hope you picked that up. You go there now, the shadow moves about at walking or slow strolling pace. You can watch the shadow move. And when the sun is lower in the sky in the wintertime, the Earth's tilt makes the sun lower in the sky. The shadow extends way to the north. And so what my father proposed, and I think we'll have to do sooner or later, is move the White House. So that this thing really becomes a significant instrument. So now this part of it, you may have to take my word for this next thing, because it depends on the color of the lighting in this room. Now if you look at the lighting here, it's artificial light, and it has a lot of yellow in it. But I want you all to look at the base of the Washington Monument, where the cement skirt is. Well, it's not a skirt, it's an expression. It's a big one. The base of the Washington Monument, look right there, and I think if you're taking my word for it, that shadow isn't just gray. That shadow is just a little bit blue. It's ever so slightly blue. And so I encourage you, if you've never done this, go outside on a sunny day, and there's one scheduled here next year. Those of you who are freshmen and haven't lived in Ithaca yet, you'll see that's really funny. Just laugh a minute. On a sunny day, make a shadow on something white, like my shirt would serve very well, or if you have your finger or pen or your friend's head. Look at the shadow and you'll see the shadow is gray. Yes, thank you, Uncle Bill, the shadow is gray. Fine. But if you look closely, I think you'll see that in here the shadow is quite yellow. Well, I'm washing up. So there was no word for this, so I was forced to make one up. The bluish tint we will call cirrulescence. Cirrulescence. There is a real word. Well, heck, now cirrulescence is a real word. Viridescence is a real word. That's green. Cirrulescence would be blue. So that little tinge of blue is why everybody knows when you're looking at a picture or a TV, whatever that, you know that it's daylight instead of moonlight or artificial light. You know it. But unless you're an artist or a photographer really taking a minute, unintended, you don't get that blue color is what's making you realize that it's a sunny day that you're looking at. So, I went to school here in the 1970s during the disco era. It was, look, you guys, it was not all good. Disco, okay, when it became new wave, really, it wasn't that great. It's a lot better now, right, in that one regard. Anyway, Cornell was very involved in putting a spacecraft, two spacecraft, on the planet Mars, on Mars. And this picture went around the world. This picture is famous, famous, famous. First picture sent back by Vikings to one spacecraft from the surface of Mars. And what always strikes me about Martian pictures is it's a place. I mean, if you were dressed properly, you could like walk around. You could have a picnic or something. You want to take food, you know, it's a camping trip, water, and I also really, if you go to Mars, strongly recommend you take something to breathe. Because they don't have any to us. It would kill you very fast. But it is an amazing place. Now there's another feature of this picture. Not just famous picture, or infamous, but notorious feature of this picture. The sky is blue. And I was at Jet Propulsion at JPL 3 years ago in November, and these guys were telling the story again, the guys who had been there at the time. It was about a day and a half before somebody said, you know, I don't think the sky is blue. And the other guy said, well, what do you mean? I mean, it's a planet. I know, but it's a different planet. And so this was electronically done by accident. You know, electronically, you can make the thing any color you want. It turns out the sky on Mars is really, yeah, this is what they said. The sky on Mars is really this color. Now, what is that color? The color is orange, yes. Salmon. You know, if you go where they sell women's stockings, it's in the upper right. It's one of the I don't wear women's stockings. I'm a huge fan. Huge fan. We call it pale orange. Anyway, so this getting the color right is very important to rock chemists, to geologists. These guys are obsessed. I'm sorry Dr. Steve Suarez isn't here today, principal investigator. And you saw Jim Bell, Dr. Bell, gave a little intro. It was pretty nice. It was very nice. Anyway, these guys are obsessed with the color of rocks. They can't get enough of the color of rocks because that tells you what's in the rock or what's on the surface of the rock. And on Mars, the whole thing is orange because the whole planet has rusted. The whole planet is rusty iron oxide. So, they had this idea. Back in the 1990s, this would be Nirvana, this would be Nevermind, and so on. Right about that time. What we'll do on the next spacecraft, so we don't get the color of the sky wrong, we'll put one of these. There. That'll do. So, it's a test pattern with a camera, right? You point the camera at this thing and you look at the color coupons, as they're called, and then you're supposed to get the color of the electronic image correct. But wait, there's more. So they put a metal post on there to cast a shadow on purpose. And so bear in mind, this is before this lecture, this is several years ago. I'm sitting there listening to them. Now I don't want to fight them, but I worked on Boeing 747. Well, I don't want you to be scared. I was very well supervised. And there's a tube in the Boeing 747, hydraulic tube about this big, that I like to think of as my tube. It took me 3 years because it added weight to the airplane. You're never supposed to add weight to the airplane. That is evil. You are fired. But I convinced them that this was okay. Well, so they had this metal stick and they're casting a shadow. Come on, you guys. Aren't there like wire harnesses or antennae or something? The little squibs that blow the thing. Oh no, we got to have this because it casts a shadow this way. And then right about, I'm like, you guys, we've got to turn the photometric calibration target into a sundial. People are all looking at me. You know, Bill, it's the space program. We don't use sundials. Oh, I see you're wearing a watch. No, it'll be cool. We'll be able to reckon time on another world. So it'll be like guys who speak Klingon. It's going to be real. So Steve Squires and Jim Bell, they thought about it for sort of 3 days, and we went, okay. So if you look at this picture closely, I think you will see it was taken in room light in an oven. I think you will see not cirrulescence or viridescence, but a yellowish tinge that I like to call essence. Come on, it begins with an X, people. So, you guys can see, okay. So, my friends, there are 2 sundials on Mars. This is Husband Hill. Actually, it's a picture of Husband Hill, named after a ring husband, one of the guys killed in the Columbia wreck, space shuttle wreck. And if you look down here in the lower right, there is our Mars dial. And so it casts a shadow, let me assure you. And there are tens of thousands of pictures of these things because they really do use it to get the camera right every day. And so very pleased to be part of that, and it's a very cool little instrument. And the third one, we made 3 of them. There's a machinist at University of Washington, Seattle, made 3 of them. And the third one is sitting in Jim Bell's drawer, Dr. Bell's drawer. But this Curiosity rover, MSL Mars Science Laboratory. Oh, by the way, MSL, the next rover, which leaves in November to get to Mars next August. You guys will all be here. You will all be alive for the next Mars rover. MSL originally stood for Mars Smart Lander. But NASA got all freaked out that people would give a hard time if it screwed up. So they changed the acronym. It's not smart. No, it's science. It's science. It's called, it has a whimsical happy name, it's Curiosity. The Curiosity rover's Mars dial is the one that was sitting in Jim's drawer up at Space Science the last few years. Anyway, if you look at it closely, we have it here. I think you can see down here in the lower right that the shadow is not blue, it is not orange, it is not yellow, it's not green. Instead, it's orange. So I had to make up the word orange. It's orangey colored. It's taupe blue, mocha, whatever that is. There it is.
I can't tell.
So you can see it. And by the way, at NASA, nothing is out of focus. That would be a mistake. This is defocus. Or defocus. And the reason it is, it's very close to the camera. The cameras are focused at like 30, 50 meters or something. And so it's out of focus. It's defocused. And as I said, it was manufactured at the University of Washington, Seattle. I lived in Seattle where we did the science guy show for many years. And the guy who really worked on it, Woody Sullivan, is a really brilliant astronomer. He's a big mnemonicist. The gnomon is the thing that casts the shadow on a sundial. So a mnemonicist is a gnomon maker. Okay, no, dude. Anyway, he pointed out, and my father would have pointed out, that if you have a sundial, it should have a motto to give you something to think about. Like I had the pizza box, for the sunny hours. Like you'll see, I only count the sunny hours. Describe it, you're on your own. You'll see something like, life is but a shadow. And Woody, there's one in France, I've seen this picture. It says, every hour injures. The last hour kills. It's a sunny day. Career, the stranger, existentialism, life sucks, and then you die. That's good. But really, people, we put a motto on Mars Dial. And our motto is 2 worlds, 1 sun. So I hope it gives you pause for thought. Okay, there's only 1 star. And the shadows cast on these 2 different worlds must need to be made by light from the same star. I hope that gives you pause for thought about what I like to call your place in space. It really is quite a thing. When you see pictures of shadows on Mars, if you show that to my grandfather, he was like, I said, I think you're making that up. I've read science fiction books. It's nothing like that. They've got canals and everybody talks to each other in English. That's great. But I just want to reassure you, we did use it as a sundial several times. The Planetary Society, the organization that Jim Bell, Dr. Bell made reference to, I'm executive director of, we got together and we put the hour lines on electronically. The two things, oh, I did bring something to the party, you guys. At that meeting, back in the day, when you're near the equator of a round planet, like, like the Earth. Good example. Then you don't want a triangle sticking up. You don't want your gnomon to be a triangle because sometimes the sun is south of you and sometimes it's north of you. If you go to Hawaii or someplace, you'll see they have a rectangle sticking up. Or, as my father did, just a stick, a post, what's sometimes in English called a noon pole. And so, because the rover is roving, the hour lines would move. So I hated it. No hour lines, really, chill. No triangle. So that's what I brought to the party. But anyway, we reckoned time with it several times. And the other thing I did, just want to reassure you, taxpayers, voters, I did do the vibration analysis on the gnomon, the metal stick. So the ball helps your eye find the center of the shadow. And now, heck with your eye, we do it electronically. You find it dead on. And then the lower star-shaped thing, that's the lower notice. When the sun's low in the sky in the morning or the afternoon, it casts its own shadow and you can find the center. All right. I did the vibration analysis on this aircraft aluminum 6061 T6 unobtainium fabulous thing. And it's super strong. I mean, you can tell a truck with it, but if it had come loose, this metal stick, and bounced around in the airplane, the spacecraft electronics, Uncle Bill would have been bad. But anyway, recently, one of you sent me this picture, and then I realized it was April 1st. Oh, you kids with your Photoshop. But whoever did it, I want to reassure you, you got me. Comedy beat where your life's over. That's not how it's simple. It's just all right. That's the story of Mars, and I just want to point out to you, Cornellians, this is very much part of your legacy as Cornellians. A whole bunch of fantastic things go on. You will have the opportunity to hear people speak. You can imagine. You'll interact with professors who are absolutely the best in the world at whatever it is he or she does. You'll have fantastic experiences here. But this, the exploration of Mars, is very much part of Cornell's legacy. And I just like to share it with you because I hope when you understand more about these other planets, it enriches you, it enriches your life, and your understanding of your place in space. So here's Rhodes Hall. Actually, it's a picture of Rhodes Hall. I don't think it would even fit in this room. That is a joke, everybody. I'm not afraid. So I walked by this building. After I would come to visit. This building didn't exist when I was here as a student. But then, thanks to Dr. Bell, I became a visiting professor or a class of 1956 Frank H.D. Rhodes professor. And so I would come here, I came here once a semester for 5 years. You think you got it that? Yeah. I came here and I'd look up at that building and go, man, it would sure be cool to have a clock right there, right? And I said to myself roughly, a clock! That'd be cool! So, because of my dad and all this sundial history, I wanted to put a sundial on it. But I don't know how in this motion of the sun you are, but you can't really reckon time on the north side of the building unless you go to extraordinary lengths. There are a few days or weeks of the year where the sun does hit that thing, but have it sit there all year dark seems sort of purposeless. So I thought, heck, let's have a clock lit in some fashion by the sun. And so your first idea, if you're a physics, scientist, engineer, I got it, we'll just make a big slit, a big skylight, and the light will come from the skylight onto the clock. That'll be simple. Well, the drawings are all in English, and you'll see a mixture here of metric and English, but it turned out in order to really have a satisfactory slit, it would have to be 59 feet long. I know, easy for you. If you're a pitcher, that's only 60 feet, yeah. But this would be impractical. And so, in order to make it get enough light to the front of the clock, you have to have a big enough area of skylight. And if you make it narrow enough to have a satisfactory noon moment, the thing ends up just, as I say, just crazy too big. So I agitated about this. I cognified. I smircated. I stroked my chinified. I did all that. Where I live now in Southern California, this is me. Actually, I'm here. That's a picture. The roof of my house. And I have 4 kilowatts of solar panels, and I have a solar hot water system. And then I also have this dome. And the brand name is Solitude, made in Australia. There's a lot of competitive products now, but 5.5, 6 years ago, that was the thing. And so it hit me. What we got to do is use one of these bad boys to run light from the one side of the building to the other. So the dome is not just messing around. The dome has these grooves in it. If you could look at a couple of these lights, you'll see there are circles in them. And this is called a Fresnel lens. French mathematician named Fresnel, who figured out you can scoop out a lot of the glass and just compress rings, and you get still a pretty good lens. And so these rings push direct sunlight down the tube even when the sun is low in the sky in the morning or evening. So this Fresnel lens is quite cool. So I thought, well, we can put this lens, this Fresnel thing, on the roof, the Solitude, run light from the roof to the front of the clock, and then it hit me. We'll light it up once a day at solar noon. Now, solar noon is this time. It's not clock noon. It's when the sun is highest in the sky. And the astronomers will say, or navigators will say, when the sun culminates, the culmination of the sun. And so we'll wait for the sun to be highest in the sky. We'll let light on the tube, and the clock reads out. All right. Then my colleagues, some of whom are seated here, said, I paraphrase, dude, that is never going to work. Dude, really. So, and of course, they may have been right. This is, you must embrace that. So I lived in Seattle and I worked at Boeing, and part of the Seattle and Boeing mythology is the mythic text